A boy bursts into the police station, crying, "Please, arrest my father." What he reveals next will shock everyone. Dear viewers, welcome to our channel. Subscribe to receive more stories every day. On a warm Wednesday morning, calm prevailed in the police station in the small town of Maplewood. The fans turned slowly, trying to relieve the heat while the officers sipped their coffee and went over reports. It was a typical peaceful morning for the town. However, the calm was shattered when the doors of the police station burst open, and a little boy with brown hair and terrified eyes appeared. He rushed into the station, his eyes red from crying, searching the room desperately. The boy was Tommy, a 7-year-old small for his age and clearly frightened. Without hesitation, Tommy made his way to the reception desk. His tiny feet echoed on the tiled floor, and his little hands gripped the counter as he tried to get the attention of any adult who could help him. "Please, arrest my father." His trembling, desperate voice echoed through the room, drawing everyone's attention. The officers, initially confused, exchanged bewildered looks. Some put down their coffee cups. Others set aside their paperwork. The boy's statement had caused an immediate stir. Tommy looked at the officers and repeated, his voice filled with anguish, "Please arrest him. He can't stay free." Officer Sarah, a young policewoman with a gentle gaze, came running. Hearing the boy's cries from her office, she intervened with a motherly look on her face. She picked Tommy up and took him to a nearby bench. Calm down. Come here. Sit down," she said softly, running her hand through his hair to soothe him. "It's all right now, little one. You're safe here." Tommy's little heart was pounding, his shoulders trembling, and tears streaming down his face. "What happened, sweetie? There's no need to cry. You're safe now. Do you want to tell me what happened?" Officer Sarah continued, trying to extract some information from the frightened boy. Tommy clung to Sarah's shirt, his eyes still wide and teary. The hall of the police station was now filled with a mixture of confusion and concern. Every officer exchanged worried glances, whispering about what the boy's father might have done. It was clear that Tommy's words carried an unbearable weight for someone his age. Sergeant James, a big man with gray hair and a neatly trimmed mustache, stood up from his desk. His gaze was firm but also carried a touch of concern. He walked slowly over to Tommy and Sarah, trying to understand the situation. "Good morning, young man. What are you doing here all alone? Why did you come here?" Tommy's breathing was heavy, interspersed with sobs that made his anguish evident. Even surrounded by protectors, he seemed to feel vulnerable and frightened. More officers, curious and worried, began to gather around the boy, forming a semicircle. The sergeant, despite his imposing posture, showed genuine concern and asked, "Come on, buddy, you can tell us what happened." Tommy tried to answer, but his words came out garbled and confused. "He needs to be arrested. He's gonna go to jail." His fragmented sentences increased the sense of fear in everyone present. Seeing the agents crowding around and worried about scaring the little one, Officer Sarah decided to take him to the interrogation room. "Come on, sweetheart," Sarah said, lifting him cautiously. "Let's go inside and have a chat." The boy calmed down when he sat down in the interrogation room. Sarah asked again, "What did your father do, Tommy? Did your father hurt you or do anything bad?" Tommy's face contorted with frustration. It was clear he wanted to say something, but the words seemed to escape him. "Daddy gets angry sometimes," he finally said, his voice fading at the end of the sentence, leaving a trail of uncertainty in the air. "What do you mean, son?" Sergeant James asked. The tension in the room was palpable. The officers' minds began racing, trying to fit the pieces of this dark puzzle together. Had it been domestic violence or verbal abuse? What could be so terrible as to make a child seek refuge in the police station and beg for his father's arrest? The sergeant leaned over, noticing the sad look on Tommy's face, and said softly, "We'll help you, Tommy, but I need you to try and tell us more details." "All right." Tommy slowly agreed, still fighting back tears. "Come on, I'll ask you a few questions, and you just answer yes or no, okay?" James suggested. "Is your father home now? How did you get out of the house?" the sergeant asked. "Well, Daddy's asleep. I unlocked the door and ran here," Tommy replied, drying his tears. The officers focused on understanding Tommy's narrative. Is your father very aggressive, Tommy? Does he hit you? Sarah asked with her motherly tone. Tommy's answer took a while, as if he was thinking about what to say. Yes, I've been hit a few times, he exclaimed, his eyes wide and his breathing fast. The officer's reaction was almost instantaneous, and it only heightened the tension. They asked where Tommy lived. Even though he didn't know the address, his directions were enough for the officers to identify the house. When the sergeant asked about Tommy's mother, the boy said he hadn't seen her for a long time. Dad said she went for a walk, but she never came back. Everyone was petrified by these words. The police station became a flurry of activity. Officers moved frantically, coordinating their efforts and preparing to act. A team was immediately deployed to Tommy's house, ready to face the worst. The sergeant communicated with the unit on its way to Tommy's house. Attention, Unit 3-5R. Code for Domestic Violence Report. Don't let the man escape. Proceed with caution. Tommy continued, his voice still shaky. Every night he gets angry. He says he can't take it anymore. The sergeant asked, "What is it your father can't take anymore, kid?" Tommy's eyes welled up with tears. He slammed the fridge door. "I got scared," he screamed, "and I ran to my room." The officers understood everything. The poor boy was the victim of a violent man who needed to be detained. They waited for the criminal to arrive at the station. Meanwhile, at Tommy's home, his father Michael was resting deeply. He was woken by the sound of police cars pulling up in front of his house. The place was deplorable, with a crumbling wooden house and overgrown bushes. The officers burst through the front door, shouting, "Police! Come out with your hands up!" Michael didn't have time to argue. The police handcuffed him and led him to the car. "What's going on? Why am I being arrested?" he shouted, confused. "You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney. If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be provided for you. Do you understand the rights? We're taking you to the police station," one of the officers said. "The police station? No, I didn't do anything. Let me go. I have a kid at home. Let me go." Michael pleaded. "Your son Tommy is at the police station. You're done, buddy. Come on, get in the car," the officer said, pushing Michael into the vehicle. Michael felt his heart racing, worry invading his chest. Back at the police station, the roar of the car's engine announced the team's return from Tommy's house. The atmosphere was charged with tension. When the door opened, what they saw was not what they expected. A disheveled figure of a thin man emerged from the car, with pale skin, deep tired eyes, and muscles almost atrophied by apparent malnutrition. His clothes were worn and dirty, revealing the harsh reality of his life. Michael, still handcuffed, looked confused and desperate. "What's going on? Why am I here?" he kept asking, his voice shaking with uncertainty and fear. When his eyes met Tommy's, a wave of relief and concern washed over him. The boy, seeing his father in this state, didn't hesitate. He ran across the room and threw himself into his father's arms. "Daddy!" Tommy shouted, his eyes wet with tears. The hug that followed was full of emotion, and Michael's eyes also filled with tears. The scene was disconcerting to the officers. "I thought he was abusing the boy," the sergeant said, approaching Officer Sarah incredulously. "What abuse? What are you talking about? Why am I here handcuffed, and what is my son doing in this police station?" Michael asked, his voice filled with bewilderment. Everyone looked at each other, searching for words. Tommy's thin, innocent voice cut through the silence. "I'm the one who had you arrested, Daddy," he said, looking at Michael with hope. "What? You had me arrested? But why? What did I do?" Michael asked, his heart pounding. Tommy raised his face to his father and, full of emotion, whispered, "I just wanted you to eat, Daddy." The simple confession dropped like a bomb in the room. Everyone stared, not understanding. Tommy continued, his voice shaking. "I saw it on TV. They said in prison, people get food 3 times a day. I remember that night I heard you crying in the kitchen. The fridge was open, and you were so sad, asking why there was no food. You banged on the fridge and screamed." Michael, understanding everything now, explained the situation. He had been sacrificing his own well-being to feed his son since his wife died. He had serious financial difficulties and hadn't had a job for months. He bought enough food for one and gave it all to Tommy, barely eating himself. The boy, too young to fully understand, thought arresting his father was the solution to their hunger. With tears streaming down his face, Michael pulled Tommy into a tight embrace. "Oh, my little boy. I'm so sorry you had to go through this." The officers, many of whom were fathers, felt a knot in their own stomachs. The investigation into domestic violence had become a stark reflection of the reality many families faced. Michael and Tommy were released and returned home. The next day, they were surprised by several community members and police officers at their door. "I heard someone here could use a little help," Sarah said with a warm smile. The sergeant continued, "By the way, we're in need of a janitor at the police station. Would you be interested?" Tears welled up in Michael's eyes. "Yes, I accept. Thank you so much." Tommy, seeing the toys brought by the visitors, shouted, "Look, Daddy, look how many toys." It was a happy and memorable day. The following week, the police station, once a place Michael never thought he'd enter, became his place of work and a symbol of a new phase in his life. The story of the little boy who had his father arrested spread throughout the city, inspiring the community to help those in need. Volunteer groups began organizing donation fairs and assistance programs, ensuring no family went hungry. Tommy's naive act, motivated by love, transformed the entire town. He taught everyone an invaluable lesson. In adversity, kindness and empathy can flourish, and sincere actions can have unimaginable repercussions. Dear viewers, thank you for watching. If you like this story, please subscribe to our channel to receive more stories every day. Share with us what you think of this story.